Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Randall Beatley, and this is the Unhinged Wrestling Podcast. First ever video edition. If you're listening on Spotify or Google or Anchor, however you're listening, thank you again for listening. This is the first episode of Unhinged on the internet, on YouTube. Excuse me. Like I said, I am going to be putting this on Anchor and all the other podcast apps as well for audio. We got a great episode on tap today. So I'm gonna start podcast by doing positive, because I am a very, people would say, negative person in terms of wrestling today. And so two things. We're gonna start each podcast off, by things that made me happy over the last couple of days leading up to that episode that we were recording. And I got two today. So the first one is Brad Shepard. I don't even remember what website he used to write for, but he has been fired. That made me happy because this dude was just a douche. He was mean to every single person that ever talked to him. Disrespectful. He didn't draw a lot of views. Apparently, they released an article when he got fired, basically saying he only got about 9.9 thousand people to like an average, and that's not good for a journalist, especially on a website that gets 100 and something thousand people daily on articles. And so that made me happy to see that he's out of a job. He did not deserve to be a wrestling writer. I have no hatred to the guy himself. It's just his takes weren't good. He was mean to all the female wrestlers. He treated them as basically sex props, which that's not all they're good for. And my take on that, just real quick, is that females aren't sex objects, but sex sells. But you got to treat them with respect. You can be respectful while still promoting sexuality and the sexual being that women's are. You can still be respectful in it, and he just wasn't. And the second one is Tom Segura. He's a comedian. He has nothing to do with the wrestling world, but on his podcast, he basically went in on wrestling fans, and some of his things he said I didn't agree with, but he basically went in. I'm going to post the video if I can get it saved to my computer. I'll post it on my Twitter and maybe... actually, you know what? You can just watch it for yourself.
An adult watching Puppy Dog Pals.
So many guys who love wrestling. I think wrestling is for fucking retards, but
it is.
But so many people,
so
like
many people
it is
love
the fucking stupidest shit. And I think you're a fucking tool if you're like,
yeah,
hey man, it's not fake, it's fucking fake, and you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
but
grow up.
They're not real fights. These are just stunt people.
But imagine
and the fact that like guys are like, man, did you see the Undertaker?
That's who he loved. Like, he liked Undertaker.
Jesus
and
Christ.
He made me go to a WWE event in LA when
it's pathetic. It's pathetic.
You're
a pathetic person.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty fun.
What was?
The event. Going to a live wrestling.
Yeah, so's the Special Olympics. It's a fun thing to go to. But it's not real. It's not a real competition.
Of course not. But some people do. The people who think it's real, they are R-worded. Definitely.
They're completely retarded.
Yeah. It's for children. It's not for... But when it's a male adult...
If you're over 11 and you're like, you see SmackDown last night? Jesus Christ.
That's how this guy was. And he knew all of them. And
then he tagged in his partner. And then they grabbed a chair. Man... I never thought we would see the day.
Yeah, I know.
That the Bass Brothers would hold the belt. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Wait, and then he would tell me the saga. He's like, and then, Vince McMahon, he's the bad guy. And Vince owned the whatever. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's how the ads for wrestling should be. It should be like WWE This is for diminished capacity. That should be their tag for the fucking wrestling shit.
We uneducated.
Jesus Christ. It's not a real sport.
They're so dumb.
All right. What a great video. I agree with a lot of what he said, especially when he basically went in on people who were like, hey, dude, you want SmackDown? And this and this and this and this happened. And it made me think of Meltzer and Alvarez and Keller and all these marks that out there who that's all their life revolves. And Cornette. Cornette's the worst. He blocked me on my personal page because I went in on him about how disrespectful he is to Vince Russo. You don't have to agree with Vince Russo, but he's just disrespectful, wishing for his death, wanting to piss on his grave, basically saying he ruined his life because wrestling was his life, and that's all has been his life for 40 years because he's a mark. He has no applicable marketable skills in this world. If wrestling were to end today, Jim Cornette could not get another job, in my opinion, because all he knows is wrestling. All he drinks, sleeps, eats, piss, shits, consumes is wrestling. And those type of people are the people Segura's going after. And I go after when I talk about the marks. These people who just think that wrestling revolves and is the center of their life, guys. It's entertainment. It's not serious. Segura, the only thing I would disagree with you is you called it fake, which is a common misconception. It's staged, not fake. They are fake fights, in that the fights are predetermined. So I don't hate the word fake as much as other wrestling fans do. I do understand that it's an entertainment and an athletic event, but the fights are fake. It's predetermined. They're not real fights. That's all the people who are using the F word, the fake word. All they're trying to say is they're not real fights. Why are we getting so serious about them? And I would agree with that. Moving on. From the two things that made me happy. Moving on to the meat of this podcast, we're going to discuss something that's going on in wrestling Twitter. Wrestling Twitter. So I've been in a bunch of groups on Twitter since I've started Twitter 10, 15 years ago. To think that Twitter was that old is crazy. But like for me, when I was religious, in like the Christian circles, there were groups for that were real popular when I first got on, 2012, 2013, 2014. Starting around 2015, 2016, and even into now, the political realm is what is taking Twitter by storm. If a lot of talk on Twitter is political or sports, been a lot of sports groups and circles there with people that I would talk to. But now a lot of it is wrestling, and the wrestling Twitter world is the weirdest of all the groups. Guys, when I was in any of the sports circles, right, sports teams, whether for me be the Patriots or the Celtics or the Red Sox, none of those groups or none of these groups that I would be in and circles that I would be in on Twitter for sports or politics, none of them ever had an after dark hashtag for that community. I'm sure some of the people in that group were into that type of thing, but they kept, and they necessarily didn't always expose themselves. I'm not saying they didn't, or they don't. There were a few that I can remember being a Bruins fan when I had my Bruins. Back when I first started, anonymous accounts, I mean, they're still popular. But back when I first started, like, and I had an anonymous account, like everyone had one, and that was cool because you got to be someone you weren't, right? And no one could judge you based on who you were or what you looked like, because no one really knew what you looked like. You were anonymous, right? And so, we had a few that I can remember that posted sexual pictures for clout. But a lot of this after dark Twitter, I feel, for wrestling fans is for clout. Wrestlers, I say this a lot. Not all of them, but some wrestlers have no marketable workforce skills. That all they know, all they do, and all they think about is wrestling. That's the only thing they know how to do is wrestling and play video games. And you can't earn money for that right now. I mean, video games, I guess you can, but no one, if you're not good, you're not going to earn money. And so you can't earn money from being an independent wrestler who can't wrestle right now because of the virus and everything and the lockdown. And so they're going on to, and I'm not hating. Let me first preface this, but if you are a sex worker, no hate. Admirable workforce. It's an acceptable job. Not hating. But for these people, like these weirdos that are on the internet, like, first of all, wrestling fans are weird to begin with. Like, it's the only fan base that I can think of that, like, create. I mean, we have stan accounts for every fan base, but like wrestling fans take it to, like, the extreme. Sometimes. We got these weirdos out there who like go out and just like randomly DM wrestlers and like I would never go up to. Let me think of a female actor that I like. Let's name a female actor. I would never go up to that female actor and be like, "Hey, in your DMs, you're sexy, you're hot. Can you get like that?" Because I know there's no chance in that, and I don't do it with wrestlers or these weirdos who like wait in line for hours to get a picture with a female wrestler. I'm not doing that. That's not me. I don't. They're human beings to me, and so they're not special. They're definitely not famous in the mainstream. So for the most part, if I got a picture with Alexa Bliss, I would be happy, but it wouldn't be one of those things where I would wait 6 hours in line to do, or like brag to my friends who don't watch wrestling. Oh, I got a picture with Alexa Bliss. Who the hell is Alexa Bliss? Because they won't know, right? So the Twitter fans and wrestling fans in general, especially on Twitter, are weird. We got Wrestling Twitter After Dark, which is men and women just posting like. I get it. Everyone in the world right now is horny as fuck because of the lockdown, and then if you're not in a relationship or married and like live with your significant other, more than likely you're not getting any, and I get that, but at the same time posting pictures of yourself sexually on the internet in a fan base that has a lot of weirdos, to me is not smart. And I think that whole Twitter After Dark thing is weird, especially when guys get into it and start posting like junk pictures in their boxers with their bulge. Like, no one wants to see it. I don't think it's marketable. Like, it's not a good business move in my sake, because when you're a professional wrestler and you're an independent contractor, everything you post, it represents your business. You can't post something and it not represent you, right? Unless you have like a personal and then like a gimmick account for your wrestler, right? Which is what I would do personally. And no one would know my real name because they wouldn't know, like, except for friends. And I really wouldn't put personal stuff, even then, like, I wouldn't even associate it with my wrestling account. I wouldn't even follow my wrestling account if I was an actual wrestler. Like, no one would associate me with my personal, like, who I am, right? And then my personal page would probably be an anonymous page. My name would not be on it, just for that reason that I represent my business as a personal contractor. If you are a wrestler, right, you represent yourself no matter what you do, say, right? And so things like this doesn't look good. It does in the wrestling world, I guess, in Mark's one. We have a lot of weird niches in wrestling, and we also have like the wrestling is for everyone hashtag, and the fine females who watch wrestling or whatever. That long ass, they're all long. They're long ass hashtags. I don't have time to type it. Half of them can't spell, so like wrestling's always misspelled, which is weird. But we just gotta, and then we had a lot of Me Too people, and I'm not making the movement less significant by saying this. That's not my goal. We got a lot of people in the Me Too movement who, like, every time something happens, like, they'll frown upon when female pictures get leaked, right? And my response is, females, don't ever take nude pictures or sexually meant pictures. My response to this, whether you're famous or not, is if you take them, I would not I would take them and I'm sure there are ways to like store them otherwhere that so they're not on your phone, because when they're accessible and your phone gets hacked and especially when like the cloud gets hacked, which happens a lot, and these pictures get released, like you have no like take the pictures. I'm sure you can store them on like a secondhand device. Get rid of them from your phone in the cloud. Keep them on this other device, and whenever you want to look at them, you can just pull them up on your computer through this like memory stick or whatever. Right? Because I know a lot of them do it just for personal like motivation, and some because they have others, significant others that they don't get to see all the time, and so they take these sexually explicit pictures for their significant other to send to them, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I think you got to be smarter in how you store it, because if you keep it on your phone, and you store it into a cloud or like a Google Drive or something, those things get hacked very like often. And so those pictures, like, I wouldn't even store it anywhere near the internet. I would keep it on like a memory card or whatever. Like, that's my advice. Or if you can't do that, like, don't take them. But like Velveteen Dream, apparently he said he was hacked. Someone accused him of sending him sexually explicit pictures, sending them, they're females, and basically now everyone's against Dream, saying he's a pedophile, that he's hasn't been proven guilty yet. This happened with Ellsworth, right? But my point is, when female pictures get leaked, they're not hoes or skanks or nasty, which they aren't. And the same with Dream. Now, if Dream is being a pedophile, then yes, he should be arrested, and if it really happened. But my point is everyone always believes the accuser, never the accused. And another example of this that happened on wrestling Twitter, this lady, I don't even remember, I don't follow her, I just saw all the backlash, and I want to clear my name on what I meant to say when I gave my take on this. I did this on my personal page, not the podcast page, but I am going to address it because I think it's important for the people who sent me responses saying I was creepy and perverted through saying this. Basically, the story is the girl that sung Judas on one of the pay-per-views for Jericho's entrance. I forgot what pay-per-view it was. She apparently was in a wrestling event in Brooklyn, and this lady came out saying that she sexually assaulted her. And the lady, the girl's name, I can't remember. She basically responded that she got mad drunk with her friends the entire day. The show, they left early. But she got drunk before the show and was hanging out. She said she did hang out with these girls. But when the show started, she went back with her friends. Did she do it? I don't know. Again, but everyone immediately, as the accusations went out, didn't everyone immediately jump down this girl's throat and pronounced her a predator, without giving her time to explain herself or to say her side of the story. And basically what my tweet was I think it's weird and hypocritical how we do this wrestling Twitter after dark, and we know that we have creepy fans in the wrestling world. I'm going to read the exact tweet, actually. I'm going to pull up the tweet. I don't get much action on my Twitter in terms of people responding, and so I said, I'm just trying to figure out how can wrestling Twitter sexualize themselves with wrestling Twitter after dark, then be shocked that we have pedos in the community. I'm not saying this is right. I'm just genuinely curious, which I was. Trying to figure out how we correlate. We got wrestling Twitter after dark where we sexualize ourselves, knowing we automatically have creepy people. And then we're shocked, oh my God, we have pedophiles in this group. Why are we so easily targeted? Well, it's because you're easily giving access to these pedophiles, right? And so if Dream did it, he's not right. He should be fired. He should not wrestle again. If this girl did it, she should never be involved in wrestling again. And if you're an indie promoter, I would make sure she doesn't get into a show, even as a fan. And I say that for any fan. If you come down as a pedophile, I really do believe we need to do background checks for events. I really do mean it, because a lot of these, I mean for all sporting events, I really do feel because we even have, like in football. Like, when the biggest sex ring, like sex trafficking exchange is during the Super Bowl, and whatever city the Super Bowl is, because all the traffickers go down to that city because they know there's a lot of people down there, and they put ads on like that. It's marketable. Research has proven it. Big events like WrestleMania and the Super Bowl and the college national playoffs for basketball and football, like that city will have a spike in sex trafficking through those cities. But on to the actual meat. So this is what I wanted to actually talk about now that we're about 20 minutes in. What I wanted to talk about was I saw this post the other day. I think it was on Facebook. Basically, hey, you just bought WWE. What would you do? What would be the first thing you do? Well, I couldn't think of just one. I made a full list, and I want to explain what would I do if I owned WWE. I do know the first thing I would do. The first thing I would do would be to fire the entire creative team. I would write it until I found an actual writer. Now, a lot of you aren't going to agree with me on this. The first person I would call would be Vince Russo. He's available. He's not in this bubble. He understands how to get wrestling to the mainstream. A lot of people don't like that name. A lot of people would probably be like, well, I'm not watching. You're going to have a crappy show. No, because it wouldn't be the same as it was in the 90s. People got to realize that Russo was also understood we got to grow with the times. And if you understood how Russo wrote, he didn't write to get wrestling fans. He wrote to get modern day fans. And so you would look at the TV shows that wrestling goes up against and what draws them and what's funny and through those. And he and me, I mean, it would be the same writing style. Implement those things. And yes, this is my book with my notes that I write down. So no Hollywood writers. I want people who understand the wrestling business, who at least are fans of the wrestling business. I would be involved in it, but I wouldn't be like McMahon in that McMahon gets final say. I would listen to other people. I also would be like Russo. You don't even have to move to Connecticut. This would be my selling pitch. Hey, we have technology. We can do our writing meetings over Zoom or Skype. Right? And we can write down and do meetings that way. Instead of having you come to the office and write, we can sit down and do a 4-hour meeting. Shit, we can do it every day. We can have like a writing meeting where we're going to do today. We're going to write. We're going to spend a week every month to write the whole month's show. Blah, blah, blah. And then write the whole month. And then to get to the pay-per-view, right? And then on the, right? And so that would be the first thing, is fire all the Hollywood writers, bring in people who understand wrestling. And I think I have a good drawing pitch with not having to move, because that's the problem. Like, think about Bischoff, who was only there for like 80 days. I think his exact day from the day he got hired to the day he got fired this last term was 83 days, which is freaking hilarious if you think about it. That's the name of his podcast. That's how many weeks, or it's 83 weeks, but he was only there for 83 days. But the name of his podcast is 83 weeks because that's the number of weeks WCW beat WWE. I think it's funny if that was just a rib, that would be great and hilarious, and McMahon still finds stuff like that funny. Second thing I would do would be to meet with all the other talent, meaning wrestlers. Marketing, most of the marketing and front office guys will probably stay the same. Marketing and like the business side of the business will probably stay the same, because you got to realize we also have those type of employees to deal with. But the talent, the actual wrestlers I would meet with, figure out their gimmicks, figure out their storylines, and then let them know that they're going to need to start working on promos and being good on promos, because we're not doing a scripted promo in the terms of how WWE does it now, where every single line is written for them. It'll be, okay, this is the point we want to get across. Y'all go out and do it. And a lot of these guys are actually good at doing it. This would also be the time where I would tell them that I would only have one television show, which to me would be NXT. I don't think it's right to compete on Monday nights, especially when football controls Monday nights for a majority of the year. Monday nights are hard to beat with that competition. And then Friday nights are hard because most people aren't going to watch wrestling. On Friday nights, you're either out drinking, if sports are on, they're watching sports. Like, they're doing other things than actually watching TV. Right. So I would only keep NXT. Raw and SmackDown would go away. NXT would be it. It would be on Wednesday night like it is. I think, first off, that'll only be a 2-hour show. So what I would tell these talent is we're only going to need about 30 of y'all for TV time. And we would go through that. But I would work out talent relations with other companies. So this is my thing with WWE is you consider them independent contracts. They're independent contractors, but they're never able to actually go do other work. And so I would, with indie promotions like Northeast Wrestling or PWX here in North Carolina, or Fest, or there's a lot in Florida that they can even work on while developing. Other ones all over the country. Work out deals with them where be like, hey, you don't have to pay our talent that we get. So it'll sort of be like a loan system like soccer does in Europe, where we'll be like, hey, we'll pay the talent. But the deal, the way I would bargain with this is I would pay the talent. You wouldn't have to pay the talent, right? They'll get a paycheck from us as long as they perform and show up. And I'll have talent scouts that work in, like, I would separate it like you can north, south, east, west, southeast, northeast, right? I would break it into like 8 different sections and send talent scouts, and they would basically all they would do is scout 365 days a week. They would find me new talent and these developmental. They would check up on them, and they would go to all these indie shows, right, and have good relationships with the independent wrestling world. And so the 30 people that are on TV are getting their main time, but everyone else that I would feel needs some developing can go work for these other companies in the region that we assign them to, and we'll pay the talent, and we'll basically say you have all creative freedom. However, if we send you a singles guy, he can't be a tag team without our permission, and he can't become if we send him in a tag team, we can't break up the tag team again without our permission, which is easy, right? And then say, like, not even asking for door price, but requiring at least, like, they be we're not requiring main event status, but them being part of the show at least 8 months of the year while they're developing, right? And create good contact with independents of these other guys that we have signed to WWE that can be actually developmental, because a lot of people just stay in the PC and they don't get to wrestle actual matches, or they do these house show matches which don't draw, and so I don't think that develops them good enough, like as good as they can be. I think it takes longer for them to get to where they are, right? And then the third thing is change the schedule. So like I said, I would no longer do house shows. We won't have 3 television shows. You would have 5 pay-per-views a year. I would have Royal Rumble in January, WrestleMania in April, Money in the Bank in June. August would have SummerSlam, and then Survivor Series would end the year in November. And 5 pay-per-views a year. We don't need 12. There's no reason for 12. Most people don't watch these no-name pay-per-views anyway. No need for it. Less work. You would only have 1 television taping show, and I would cancel TV contracts, or at least talk to the networks and say, after this contract is over, we're done, and we're going to start switching everything over to the WWE network. They have this network that is so amazing. The WWE Network is so profound, and I think if they did it the way I plan on doing it, if I owned the company, would be everything was on the WWE Network. A lot of people aren't watching cable, a lot of people are streaming, and so you could do like WWE Network, $20 a month, gets you 5 pay-per-views, gets you Wednesday NXT, and then all these extra shows. The WWE 24s and the Bump podcast and all these other things, the pre-shows, and you get all this for $20 a month, and you can actually use it and make it functionable, because a lot of times it freezes. But you can go and you have all the wrestling you need right there, right, as well. And I also think what they could also do is, again, with these indie deals, is say, hey, check out some of our developmental guys. We'll show some indie shows. And with these guys, I think that'll also be cool. And I didn't think about this while I wrote it down, but like even in terms of like the video game, again, GM mode would be in the video game. You can create like a developmental class where you can like create a bunch of wrestlers to develop. I would include a bunch of like guys that are on the indie scene, and like you can like, I want a wrestling game, and this is what I would try to build my wrestling game with, and I think it's actually good to where like it has all the wrestling promotions, like major ones, some indie, but WWE, New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact, AEW, all of them in one game with their full roster, and a bunch of indie guys in the independent circuit, and you can create your own promotion. You get to sign these people, and you're trying to see who does best as the company, right? And I think. And try to work alongside with these other companies and actually create an actual industry that supports each other instead of competes against each other, and tries to like create a monopoly. I think we need to go back to the territory system. I really do. And so you can have like, I wouldn't even say territory system, but to where promotions are on equal ground again, where they haven't been, but with WWE for so long. And work together and start working for the business instead of working against other companies within the business. Like I said, cancel TV deals, only Raw, no more only NXT, no Raw, no SmackDown. Indie deal for people who aren't ready, and then like who I would say would need some work. And then 30 people, 35, 40 people max, like. And we would call up as needed. Like, sometimes contracts end and people leave, right? And go to the independent scene, right? And so what it does is it allows full roster, one, to get paid and actually perform in front of crowds and actually be a part of something instead of just being in house shows and not actually doing anything. And then the last thing that I would do would be to cancel what I deem unnecessary championships. WWE has way too many titles, and by canceling 2 of the shows, you would automatically get rid of most of the belts. But I would just have a world title belt, the women's belt, the tag team belt. I would keep the cruiserweight, and I would do the North American belt, right? 5 belts. And again, with only having 40 people, and you would assume like 4 tag teams would be in that, and women talent and men's talent. Like we would build a solid roster that we could use, but everyone who wasn't going to be used on TV, like I said, would be on these indie deals, right? And they could go win championships elsewhere and things like that. But only 5 belts. And to make this sort of make sense, I want to give you my first storyline, how I would book this sort of takeover of me building it. And so what I would do is I would say, McMahon, thank you for signing the contract. I'll let you run the company or secretly we'll run it together. I wouldn't get rid of the McMahons. I think the McMahons should still have some, because it's been a family business. So like Stephanie and Triple H and Shane, they're all good minds, business and wrestling wise. I would assume if Vince was selling the company, he wanted to step away from wrestling. But he is good at marketing, and that's what his background is in business. So he's a good business mind to keep around. So I wouldn't get rid of the McMahons. But in storyline form, that's the sort of storyline. It's sort of kicking the McMahons out of power. So what the first month would make it act like the McMahons are still running the show. And so what we would do is we would sort of start for a month, like build like Team McMahon. And team, like, we're not going to follow build like a team that's like sort of like the Authority, but are actually good guys. Like, make Team McMahon the good guys who are the baby faces who, right? And then you sort of have this tyrannical sort of rebellious group who wants to to take down the WWE, and they sort of have this hidden leader behind it, and so they start attacking. Like the McMahons get attacked, Triple H gets attacked. Like run this through the programming, right? And then what I would do would be the final pay-per-view before, like we would run this for a month, and then we would go to the next, or for a few months. I would want the update, or the updated system, the sort of revealing of my character, because I feel like a good owner could also play a good character. And so like I wouldn't wrestle. I wouldn't be like a booker who wrestles, or a owner who wrestles like McMahon did. I would be sort of that See, I would take Sami Zayn's character. I love Sami Zayn's character that he's running now, this sort of like dictator type person. I would take that and I would take it to the max, right? Be this evil dictator guy who's trying to overrun the business and say I'm going to make it better. Because, right, ultimately I think I will make it better through good storylines and good storytelling, and utilizing the roster and allowing the wrestling world to work together instead of work against each other. And so what I would say would be, I would want this reveal at WrestleMania. So we could even start it at Survivor Series, where like the attacks happen at Survivor Series, and then they happen again at Royal Rumble, and they happen throughout, and then the reveal. So you're talking November, December, January, February, March. So for 4 months, building the story. Okay, who is this evil leader, and why has he not been shown yet? And what happens is this reveal of who I am, and I finally win, and we can have me be the owner of the company for real, would be at WrestleMania. And what I would do at WrestleMania is I would have it be in New York City, but have like the McMahons have like the storyline being that the McMahons are afraid of being in the building because they're afraid they might get attacked, and an uprising might happen at their big show, and they don't want that to happen. So the McMahons are in Titan Tower watching it, right? And so in the pre-show, you can have like Vince and Triple H show up, and Stephanie's at home. She could be like on injury reserve or whatever. Like she's like she's injured. She got injured in one of these uprisings, so she's at home. Triple H is mad, right? So on the pre-show, you see like Triple H and Vince walk in together. They're getting everything ready. They're making sure all the and you can see them go through the building, and you see like even guys like the creative team are still at Titan Towers because again they're afraid of an uprising, right? And so there's no like big guys at the arena, where of course they would be in this again, like it would be all staged, but there's no one at the arena to hold back an uprising, but they just don't want to be attacked again, so in fear they stay in Titan Towers, right? And so throughout the pre-show, you see these things and all these people showing up. And then as the show begins, right, the pre-show ends, show begins, you see Shane pull up to the Titan Towers. He walks inside. And as he's walking inside, Triple H is being removed from the building. And so Shane goes, Triple H, what's going on? Hunter, what's up? And he basically says your dad just did the ultimate biggest mistake ever. So Shane runs into the building trying to figure out what happened. And while that's happening, we go back to, and like the first segment would play, the first match, whatever it would be for WrestleMania would go on. And it was a good match, good 20, 25-minute match. Like, we're right before, like, Shane runs, knocks on the office door and be like, Dad, can I come in? It's Shane. And Vince says, give me a few minutes. Right? So, switch, match goes on. 15, 20, 30 minutes later, match ends. So it pans back and Vince walks out. Dad, what's going on? Shane goes, Dad, what's going on? What's... And all of a sudden you hear, both you two get out of my building, you're fired. And security takes Shane and Vince away, and Shane's like, Dad, what's going on? He's like, I had to sell the company. Right? And now that's drama. Then you go back, and throughout the rest of the match, like, chaos breaks out, right? I mean, I wouldn't even want to plan the matches, but guys like the guys who are in like the secret uprising corner would be the evil guys. So guys like Corbin and Strowman and Ziggler and stuff like that, I think could play good characters, right? And throughout the match, like chaos just breaks down, and there'd be like even segments where like they pan back to the creative team getting pulled out of the office. You're fired. Like all it says is like security walks in and like there's a big email saying you're all fired or whatever on the board. And so they're getting pulled out, and you can see like Pritchard getting pulled out because he's like the head writer. And then like they call Stephanie, like a segment where like they call Stephanie McMahon, and while she's at home and she answers, and hey, I would use my gimmick name, which would be Bennett Randleman. That's been my gimmick name. That's the name I created on WWE video games. That's my gimmick name that I would use as a wrestler. Like, hey, this is Bennett Randleman from WWE. I'm now the owner, and it's my pleasure to announce that you are fired. So Stephanie gets fired. Triple H has been fired. Shane's fired. Vince is fired. Right? Even on air, like switching out commentators, like firing backstage commentators. Like, say Charlie's about to do an interview, Charlie Caruso. Be like, she gets a call, Charlie, you can go to ESPN full time, you're fired. Michael Cole gets fired mid-call of a match. He gets a phone call on air, Michael Cole, you're fired. Right? And just get rid of these guys and replacing them with people who are in my corner in this uprising, right? And then I think the big part would be like Seth Rollins would be the champion. He's part of the McMahon good guy team. He's fighting like a Ziggler or like a Roman Reigns or someone like that who's on my side. Mid-match, the mask sort of Bennett Randleman gimmick in his office, all black, can't see his face. Says, I'm in control now. With that, Seth Rollins, you are fired. Referee, you will count him out as he's leaving the ring. There is no championship advantage. You have a new champion, and it's Roman Reigns or whatever. Like, I wouldn't use Roman because he would get booed, but he would get booed either way because we're heels, and that's what heels do, right? So that would basically be my first storyline, just sort of this 4-month overreign of power, right? And then what you can do is build it the other way and spend the next like year and a half, 2 years of just this oppressive regime who promised good change, and then the good guys come back and start taking back over the company. Because that's all wrestling is, the battle between good and evil, and you can just have that fight. And then even within like the regime, what people don't realize is an actual regime warfare. There can be coups within the actual regime, people who try to take me down as leader of the company, right? And so you can have this battle even within the regime, and this could last. I mean, it won't last forever, but that would be my first storyline that you could last for at least a year and a half. With that said, this is the Unhinged Wrestling Podcast. I want to know your thoughts. What would you do if you were in control of WWE? Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.